Kevin Steen coming out dressed as Steve Austin. While I always liked the heels dressing up as the baby faces deal, I booked it. I think once in OVW, I may have done it in Smoky Mountain. It's a good way for the heels to mock the baby faces before the heels eventually get their comeuppance and the big, blow off. But in this case, I was having to think, if I was one of those people that would have in the arena that had bought these tickets, left my house, driven somewhere, parked, paid to park, took friends or family or kids or whoever the fuck, paid for at least my shit, beer, Cokes, hot dogs, if not the whole family, sitting there. And the first thing that I see is Steve Austin's music and the glass break and his name on the Titantron and holy shit. And everybody lost their fucking minds. And then here comes Kevin Steen in a fucking skull cap and a t-shirt. I don't know if I would have recovered enough to enjoy the rest of the evening after that. What about you?
Sadly, it's the best thing he's done to actually build to a match with Steve Austin. Instead of him just wearing a cowboy hat ranting about Dallas, this is the most direct thing he's actually done just a few weeks out from WrestleMania to build to the match. The other thing is, and I've been thinking about it, if you're there with your wife and kids, so let's use your example, the husband's going to go crazy for Steve Austin. The wife's probably not going crazy for anything all night unless she's into wrestling.
Right.
Are kids today educated on the glass break, on who Steve Austin is, why he was different? Because they don't really do historical stuff on TV much. So you'd have to be going deep into the network or Peacock. So when we're building the Kevin Owens against this legend, do you think Steve Austin's known enough to younger fans? I mean, when you think about it, he's been retired for 20 years almost.
Well, but how younger fans? If there was a bunch of 8, 9, 10-year-olds.
25-year-old.
Okay, but seriously now, 25, if you're 25 years old and you're at a wrestling event, at a WWE event, not just an independent event, but a WWE event, you've seen the DVDs, the documentaries, the compilations, the legend shows where they show the highlights. You've seen him in the movies. You've seen him on television. You've seen him on every talk show. Over the last 20 years, it's not like he went away. He just didn't wrestle. And he's even been on some of the Legends Raw shows and he's appeared on the pay-per-views, and they've had, reunion shows. Who was it? Him and The Rock, and oh my God, they did that segment where there's Steve Austin, there's The Rock, and there's Miz, right? That went like 10 years ago or whatever. Point is, at this point, I think everybody knows and has an awareness of who Steve Austin is. And like when I was a fan and I was 10 or 12 years old, until I was 12 years old, I'd never seen Lou Thesz wrestle. But because of the way the announcers just mentioned him casually every once in a while as being the greatest champion of all time, then I had that awareness of him like that. It wasn't like he had to get over with me. If I didn't, and when I first saw him, he was 57 years old. And I was like, well, yeah, maybe I'm missing something, right? It wasn't like nobody, I don't think at this point is go, oh, Steve Austin, well, who'd he ever beat? I mean, he's a movie star. He's a celebrity, hosts TV shows. He's on talk shows. He's done commercials. He's doing commercials now with Ice-T. So I went the other way with it. If Austin, even though Austin's been gone, he's still Steve Austin. Owens has been there, but it's still Kevin Owens. And I mean, I'm not browbeating him when I say this, but is anybody today in any wrestling company over to the degree with the fervency of their fans and the number of their fans as Steve Austin was 20 years ago?
Of course not.
Okay. The mocking thing works to me when people are on somewhat of a level playing field as two main event guys, and when The Rock started getting smart ass, but he was working with a cast of all-time Hall of Famers, right? And you could smart ass them all day long, but it was still somebody. I would have liked to have seen, maybe you can come out and be a smart ass heel and you can make fun of Steve Austin, etc., but he never dropped it. Owens never dropped it to get serious. And he's standing there with the skull cap that's peeling off. And he's doing the typical heel thing where, yeah, that's right, I'm Stone Cold Steve Austin. Everything that Kevin Owens said about me is true and about Texas is true. And he kept doing that. And they even played the music again and gave the people another taint tickle, like, here comes the real Austin. And then he laughs at him. I know the writers think, well, that'll get him a lot of heat with the people. You were dancing on the edge of the wrong kind of heat the first time, because it's not like that those people have, some of them have ever gotten to see Steve Austin live. And they're like, oh shit, it's happening. Oh, no, it's not. And he'd do it again in the same interview. Oh, yes, no, it's not. I guess that's what I'm saying. It's not like Austin is part of the normal roster that Owens should be coming out and making fun of him and just jacking off like a heel, because it's a special thing that those people would have gotten to see Steve Austin, and or it's a special thing that Owens is getting this opportunity. So instead of doing the whole Austin thing as the promo as Austin, and then trying to catch the beers and dropping the beers that the stagehand throws, it was Mark Eaton. He used to throw the beers at Stone Cold. He had an unerring eye. But this guy was an indie guy that was there, so Owens could bring him in the ring and give him a stunner. And it left with comedy. Owens dropping the cans and stunnering the crew guy that nobody cares about, a nameless, faceless guy. That's what instead of doing that, why didn't he come out and be a smartass at the beginning, but then get serious and scorch the earth? And Steen can do it. So it was probably the writer's restrictions on no, say our material, it's all gold. But couldn't he have come out and said, okay, so let's just drop all the BS, even though they said bullshit later on in this program. Let's drop all the BS. How am I, Kevin Owens? How am I going to destroy Stone Cold Steve Austin when The Rock failed and The Undertaker failed and Foley failed, all the greatest failed, the Hall of Famers failed? Because Steve Austin, no matter how bad you were and think you still are, I'm not only 20 years younger than you, I'm in better shape. And then all the people would laugh because look at the fat fuck, right? And he said, no, it's not how you look, it's how you feel. How do you feel, Austin? Neck injury ended your career early. The doctor said you'd land on your head one bad time. You're in a wheelchair. 2 knee braces that you were wearing 20 years ago. How do they feel? Especially in the cold weather. 19 years out of the ring and 19 more years of mileage on your body doing all those movies and that wrestling career that ended so tragically short. You got a lot wrong with you, Austin. And do you think I care about your weakness? I will exploit them. I will prey on them. I'll feed on them. Could Kevin Owens of today have kicked the shit out of you in 1999? Probably not. But today, at WrestleMania, to get my chance, I will destroy you. I will put you in traction. I will piss on your legacy. In another 20 years, all they're going to remember. They're not going to remember about your CAT scans and your ligaments and your spinal column and your doctor's reports. They're going to remember that Kevin Owens put Steve Austin in a hospital at WrestleMania in 2022, and we never saw Stone Cold again. They're not going to talk about your age. They're going to talk about me. Why couldn't he do that?
Because the goal of Raw lately doesn't seem to be about presenting wrestling in a logical way that causes people to anticipate a conclusion and want to see it. It seems to be more about letting Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins do whatever it is that makes them have a good time at work.
Well, it's filling time because they got a 3-hour show. And that's the thing. It's fitting WrestleMania's in Dallas. Let me ask you this, Brian. Are people excited for WrestleMania? I know they're excited for WrestleMania in general. As Mama Cornette used to say, it beats poking the eye with a sharp stick. Are they excited for WrestleMania like they have been for WrestleMania in years past? Taking out the no people pandemic type of thing.
No, and I was thinking this the other day because I was wondering if it was just me. I wasn't sure if WrestleMania was this weekend, next weekend, or the weekend after. That's how good a job they've done of building up the most stupendous WrestleMania of all time, the biggest match of all time. There wasn't an audience a couple of years ago, the first pandemic one, that felt bigger. To me, this doesn't have any buzz at all, despite the celebrities and everything else they're trying to do here.
Well, the reason I said it's fitting, it's Dallas, because they started the principle. In 1984, they had a match that needed a stadium, and thereafter, they had a stadium that needed a match. Now, WrestleMania is a show that needs a stadium, usually, but have they turned it into? And now with 2 nights, they've got. They don't have 2 shows that need stadiums. If they
don't have one show right now that needs a stadium.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, they're selling the brand and the name and the tradition, and people want to take the trip and blah, blah, blah. But if you just sat and looked at it, they would be hard pressed to come up with one 4-hour show out of the matches they've got instead of 2 4-hour shows over 2 nights. So now they have 2 stadiums that need matches, or 2 nights in a stadium that need matches.